The call came at 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. David Mitchell fumbled for his phone in the darkness, his mind still clouded with sleep. Unknown number. He nearly declined it, probably another scam call, but something made him press the green button instead. Hello? His voice was rough with sleep. At first, there was only the sound of shaky breathing on the other end. Then, a small voice, hesitant and tearful. Daddy. The word hit David like a physical blow. He sat bolt upright in bed, suddenly, wide awake, his heart hammering against his ribs. Lily, he whispered, hardly daring to hope. Lily, is that you? A sob broke through the line. Daddy, I need help. Mum won't wake up and I don't know what to do. 7 years. 7 years since Rebecca had picked up their daughter from school one ordinary Thursday afternoon and simply vanished. 7 years. Of private investigators, police reports, court orders, and desperate searching, all leading nowhere. 7 years of birthdays spent staring at the last photo he had of his little girl, wondering if she was safe, if she was happy, if she even remembered him. And now her voice on the phone, older but unmistakably Lily's. Where are you, sweetheart? David struggled to keep his voice calm, to not frighten her with the storm of emotions coursing through him. Can you tell me what you see around you? We're in a motel. The sign outside says Pine Ridge. Another sob. Mom took some pills. She does that sometimes, but she always wakes up when I shake her. She won't wake up this time, Daddy. David's blood ran cold. Is she breathing, Lily? Can you see if her chest is moving up and down? I think so, but really slow, and she feels cold. Okay, listen carefully. I need you to find the phone in your room. Not the cell phone you're using, but the motel phone. Call 911 and tell them your mum needs an ambulance. Can you do that? I'm scared they'll take me away again. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. Mum says we can never call the police, or they'll separate us forever. Rebecca's manipulation, even from the edge of what sounded like an overdose, made David's jaw clench. But he couldn't think about that now. His daughter needed him to stay focused. Nobody's going to separate you from the people who love you, Lily, I promise. But your mum needs a doctor right now, and so I need you to be very brave and make that call. Okay. Her voice was small but resolute. After you call 911, I want you to go to the front desk of the motel and tell them what's happening. Stay there until the ambulance comes, and Lily, I need to know where you are. What city are you in? There was a pause. Rockford, Illinois. The motel is on West State Street. David was already pulling on clothes with his free hand, his mind calculating. Rockford was about 2 hours from his home in Chicago. I'm coming. Right now, Lily. I'll get there as fast as I can. Do you have this cell phone that you can keep with you? It's Mom's. I know the passcode. Good, take it with you. Call me back after you've called 911 and gone to the front desk. I'll stay on the line with you until help arrives. But right now, you need to call the ambulance for your mom. Promise you'll come? The vulnerability in her voice broke his heart, all over again. Wild horses couldn't stop me, Lilypad. The old nickname slipped out automatically, dredged from the depths of his memory. I've been looking for you every single day for 7 years. I'm not going to lose you again. After they hung up, David moved in a frantic blur, throwing essentials into a duffel bag, grabbing his wallet, keys, and the file folder he'd kept, meticulously updated through years of searching. A folder containing copies of custody papers, police reports, and the court order granting him full custody after Rebecca had taken Lily and disappeared. He called his attorney on the way to the car, the phone wedged between his ear and shoulder as he fumbled with his jacket in the pre-dawn darkness. Richard, it's David Mitchell. I just got a call from Lily. She's in Rockford, Illinois. Rebecca is unconscious, possible overdose. He yanked open his car door. I'm heading there now. Richard Levine, who had handled David's custody case from the beginning, was instantly alert despite the hour. You're sure it was Lily? After all this? Time! It was her, Richard. She's 12 now, but I'd know her voice anywhere. David started the engine. She said they're at a place called Pine Ridge Motel on West State Street. I need you to call the Rockford police. Let them know I'm on my way and that I have legal custody. I don't want any complications when I get there. I'll handle it. I'll also contact Judge Winters. She presided over your case. She'll remember. We may need an emergency order if Rebecca survives this. If Rebecca survives. The thought sent a complicated surge of emotions through David. Despite everything, he'd never wanted harm to come to Lily's mother. His anger at Rebecca had always been tempered by concern. She'd been in the early stages of what was later diagnosed as bipolar disorder when they'd separated, refusing treatment and becoming increasingly paranoid. "Just make sure Lily doesn't end up in foster care before I get there," David said firmly. "I'm her father. I have custody. I should have had her all these years." The call from Lily came as he was pulling onto the expressway, his headlights cutting through the darkness of the empty pre-dawn highway. "Daddy? The ambulance is coming. The lady at the front desk is with me. Her name is Gloria." "You did so well, Lily. Can I speak to Gloria for a moment?" There was a shuffling sound. Then an older woman's voice came on the line. "Hello? This is Gloria Wilson. I'm the night manager." "Ms. Wilson, I'm David Mitchell, Lily's father. I'm driving from Chicago right now. My daughter has been missing. For 7 years, her mother took her in violation of a custody order. I have full legal custody, and my attorney is contacting the Rockford police as we speak." There was a pause, then Gloria's voice softened with understanding. "That poor child. She's been trembling like a leaf since she came to the desk, but she hasn't shed a tear. She's been so brave." "That's my Lily," David said, his throat tight with emotion. "Could you possibly stay with her until I arrive? I'm about 2 hours away." "Of course. The paramedics just arrived. I'll stay with her the whole time, don't you worry." The drive to Rockford was the longest 2 hours of David's life. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every mile marker seemed to taunt him with the distance still separating him from his daughter. He maintained a steady stream of conversation with Lily when she was back on the phone, asking gentle questions about her life, careful not to overwhelm her or ask directly about Rebecca's actions in taking her away. He learned that they had moved many times over the years, never staying in one place longer than a few months, that Lily had been homeschooled or sometimes enrolled in schools under different names, that they had started in Canada, then moved, through various states, always small towns, always keeping to themselves. "Mom said you didn't want us anymore," Lily said at one point, her voice small. "She said you found a new family and forgot about us." The lie twisted like a knife in David's gut. "That's not true, Lily, not a single word of it. I've never stopped looking for you, never stopped loving you. I still live in the same house. Your room is exactly as you left it, waiting for you to come home." "With the butterfly wallpaper?" she asked, a note of wonder in her voice. "And the canopy bed with the purple curtains," he confirmed. "I've bought you a birthday present every year, kept them all in your closet. I always believed I'd find you someday." As he approached Rockford, Richard called again with updates. The police had confirmed his custody status. Rebecca had been transported to Swedish-American hospital, unconscious but stable under police supervision. A detective would meet David at the hospital to take his statement. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty at 4:30 a.m. when David pulled in, parking haphazardly across 2 spaces in his haste. His legs felt weak as he walked through the automatic doors of the emergency department, scanning the waiting area. And then he saw her, a slender girl with dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, wearing pajama pants and an oversized sweatshirt. She was sitting next to an older woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair, Gloria from the motel. A uniformed police officer stood nearby, speaking quietly into his radio. For a moment, David couldn't move, couldn't speak. The little 5-year-old from his memories had been replaced by this almost teenager, her face thinner, her eyes older, but undeniably his Lily. "Lily?" he finally managed, his voice breaking on her name. She looked up, her eyes, Rebecca's eyes, scanning his face uncertainly. For a terrible moment, he feared she wouldn't recognize him. Then her expression crumpled. "Daddy?" She stood, tentative at first, then rushed toward him. David dropped to his knees and caught her in his arms, holding her as if he might never let go. 7 years of searching, of hope alternating with despair, of empty spaces and unanswered questions. All of it culminated in this moment, with his daughter's tears soaking the shoulder of his jacket and her small body shaking with sobs. "I've got you," he whispered into her hair. "I've got you now. Everything's going to be okay." Later, he would have to talk to the police, to social services, to doctors about Rebecca's condition. He would have to navigate the legal system to ensure that this time his custody rights were enforced without question. He would have to help Lily process the trauma of what she'd been through, the lies she'd been told, the stability she'd been denied. But in that moment, in the harsh fluorescent lighting of a hospital waiting room before dawn, none of that mattered. His daughter was in his arms again. After 7 years of emptiness, David Mitchell was finally completely whole. As they embraced, the police officer approached, accompanied by a woman in a dark suit who introduced herself as Detective Santos. "Mr. Mitchell, we need to ask you some questions about your ex-wife and the circumstances of your daughter's disappearance." David nodded, keeping one arm firmly around Lily's shoulders. "Of course, whatever you need. We'd also like to speak with Lily if that's possible," the detective added, her tone gentle but firm. "We need to understand what's happened over these past 7 years." Lily tensed against him, her fingers gripping his jacket. "I don't want to leave you again," she whispered. "You won't have to," David assured her. "I'll be right here the whole time." Detective Santos led them to a small conference room off the main waiting area. As they settled into uncomfortable plastic chairs, she placed a recorder on the table between them. "Lily, can you tell me a little bit about where you've been living?" the detective asked. Lily glanced at David, who nodded encouragingly. "We moved around a lot," she began hesitantly. "Mum said we had to keep running because Dad had people looking for us. She said they'd take me away from her if they found us." "And did you ever stay in one place long enough to go to school, make friends?" Lily shook her head. "Sometimes I'd go to school for a little while with a different name, but as soon as I started making friends, we'd leave again." "What name did your mother use?" the detective asked, making notes. "She changed her name a few times. Mostly she was Rachel or Emily. I was always Sophie." David's heart constricted at the thought of his daughter answering to a stranger's name all these years, stripped even of her identity. "And last night," Detective Santos continued gently, "can you tell me what happened with your mom?" Lily's voice grew quiet. "She was really upset yesterday. We had to leave our apartment in the middle of the night. She said someone from our old building recognized her from a missing persons flyer." Lily glanced at David. "I didn't know there were flyers about us." "There were," David confirmed, "all over the country." "Mom was crying a lot in the car," Lily continued. "When we got to the motel, she took some pills. She does that sometimes. When she gets really sad or scared. Usually she just sleeps for a long time, and I have to be very quiet and not open the door for anyone. But this time," her voice faltered. "This time she wouldn't wake up and her breathing sounded funny. I got scared." "How did you know to call your father?" the detective asked. "Did you have his number?" Lily shook her head. "Mom keeps a little notebook in her purse with important numbers. Yours was in there, Dad. It said, 'David, do not call with the number.' But I remembered you. I remembered you used to call me Lilypad and make pancakes shaped like animals." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I knew you wouldn't have forgotten me." David struggled to maintain his composure, acutely aware of the detective's presence and the recording device. "Never, Lily, not for a single day." Detective Santos asked a few more questions about their living conditions, whether Lily had ever been harmed or neglected, how Rebecca had supported them financially. Lily answered honestly, her exhaustion becoming more evident as the interview continued. "Just one more question," the detective said, noticing Lily's drooping eyelids. "Do you know if your mother has any other family or friends who might have helped her during these years? Anyone she might have stayed with or received money from?" Lily thought for a moment. "There was Uncle Marcus. He's not really my uncle, but Mom called him that. He helped us move sometimes, gave Mom money. I didn't like him very much." The detective's interest visibly sharpened. "Do you know Uncle Marcus's last name or where he lives?" "I think his name is Marcus Delgado. Mom met him in Toronto when we first left. He has a house in Detroit, I think. We stayed there twice." David exchanged a glance with the detective. This was new information, a potential accomplice who had aided and abetted Rebecca's unlawful flight with Lily. The detective made a note, then turned off the recorder. "Thank you, Lily. You've been very helpful." She turned to David. "Mr. Mitchell, the doctors want to keep Ms. Reynolds under observation for at least 24 hours. She's stable now, but she hasn't regained consciousness. When she does, she'll be officially arrested for custodial interference and child endangerment, at minimum." "What happens now?" David asked, his arm still protectively around Lily. "Can I take my daughter home? We'll need confirmation from social services, but given your valid custody order and the circumstances, I don't foresee any issues. They'll likely want to schedule a follow-up visit to your home, but yes, you should be able to take Lily home today." As if summoned by the conversation, a woman in her 30s with a clipboard and a tired smile entered the conference room. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Elaine Rogers from Child Protective Services. I understand you're Lily's father and legal custodian." David provided his identification and custody paperwork, which Richard had thankfully advised him to bring. After reviewing the documents, Ms. Rogers nodded. "Everything appears to be in order. Given the hour and what Lily's been through, I think the best thing would be to let her go home with you today. We'll schedule a home visit for next week to ensure everything's proceeding smoothly with the transition." The transition, such a clinical term for the seismic shift taking place in both their lives. But David simply nodded, willing to agree to anything that would allow him to take Lily home without further delay. As they prepared to leave, a nurse appeared in the doorway. "Detective, Ms. Reynolds is awake. The doctor says you can speak with her briefly." Detective Santos stood. "Mr. Mitchell, would you and Lily mind waiting here for a few more minutes? I'd like to get a preliminary statement from Ms. Reynolds while the events are fresh." David hesitated, torn between wanting to confront Rebecca himself and shielding Lily from further trauma. "We'll wait," he decided, noticing how Lily's eyelids were drooping with exhaustion. After the detective left, Lily curled against his side, her head resting on his shoulder. "I remembered the pancakes," she murmured sleepily. "Bunny pancakes. On Easter, ghost pancakes on Halloween. You always wanted the ears or the tail," David recalled, his throat tight with emotion. "And you'd only eat them with blueberry syrup, never maple. Can we have pancakes when we get home?" Home. The word had never sounded so beautiful. "Absolutely. Any shape you want." Lily was nearly asleep when Detective Santos returned, her expression grim. "Mr. Mitchell, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" David carefully extricated himself from Lily, who blinked awake briefly before settling back into the chair. "I'll be right back, sweetheart. Just going to talk to the detective for a minute." In the hallway, Detective Santos lowered her voice. "Ms. Reynolds is conscious but extremely distressed. She's asking to see Lily." "Absolutely not," David replied instantly. "She's put our daughter through enough. I won't let her use Lily for emotional manipulation." "I understand your position," the detective said carefully, "but Ms. Reynolds is making some concerning statements about harming herself. The doctors are evaluating her for psychiatric hold, but she's fixated on seeing Lily one more time. She's claiming she took the pills intentionally because she knew she was about to be caught and couldn't bear to be separated from her daughter." David ran a hand through his hair, conflict raging inside him. The last thing he wanted was to subject Lily to more trauma. But if Rebecca was truly suicidal, what exactly would this involve? He asked reluctantly. "A brief, supervised visit. You would be present the entire time, along with medical staff. At the first sign of inappropriate behavior or distress from Lily, it ends immediately." David glanced back at the conference room, where Lily had fallen asleep in the chair, her face finally peaceful after the ordeal of the night. "Let me think about it. Right now, my priority is getting Lily somewhere she can rest properly. We can revisit this later today if necessary." The detective nodded. "That's fair. The doctors are likely to place Ms. Reynolds on a 72-hour psychiatric hold regardless. She won't be going anywhere." As David carefully gathered his sleeping daughter into his arms to carry her to the car, he was struck by how light she felt, how fragile. 7 years of her life had been stolen, from her, from him, from their relationship. Years that could never be recovered, filled with lies and instability. Yet here she was, miraculously returned to him. As he settled her in the passenger seat of his car, fastening the seatbelt around her sleeping form. He made a silent promise. Whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever healing they needed to do together, he would never let her down, never let her go. The sun was just rising as they drove away from the hospital, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold. A new day, a new beginning. David reached over and gently brushed a strand of hair from Lily's sleeping face. "We're going home, Lily Pad," he whispered. Finally going home. Part 2. The drive back to Chicago was quiet, with Lily sleeping most of the way, her head resting against the window. David kept glancing at her, still hardly able to believe she was really there. Each curve of her cheek, each flutter of her eyelashes as she dreamed seemed miraculous to him. When they finally pulled into the driveway of his modest suburban home, Lily stirred and looked around in confusion. "We're home," David said gently. "Do you remember it at all?" Lily stared at the two-story colonial with its blue shutters and wrap-around porch. "A little, the tire swing is gone." "It broke a few years ago," David explained, his heart lifting that she remembered any detail at all. "I can put up a new one if you'd like." The house was exactly as he'd left it in his frantic departure hours earlier. Dishes from last night's solitary dinner still in the sink, mail scattered on the counter, a coffee mug half empty beside his laptop. All the mundane evidence of his lonely existence these past 7 years. "Your room is upstairs," he said, suddenly nervous. What if she hated it? What if the purple butterfly room of a 5-year-old seemed childish and strange to the 12-year-old standing before him? "I've kept it the same, but we can change anything you don't like." Lily climbed the stairs slowly, her hand trailing along the banister. David followed, watching as she paused outside the door with the wooden plaque that spelled Lily in colorful letters. When she pushed open the door, her small gasp made his heart clench. The room was exactly as she had left it. Butterfly wallpaper, purple canopy bed, stuffed animals arranged on shelves. But on the desk, neatly arranged, were 7 birthday presents, each wrapped in different paper, each with a card attached. "You really did keep everything," Lily whispered, moving to touch the gifts with trembling fingers. "Open them," David encouraged. "They're all yours." While Lily carefully unwrapped 7 years' worth of missed birthdays, books and art supplies, a jewelry box, a star projector for her ceiling, David went downstairs to make the promised pancakes. In the kitchen, he allowed himself a moment of emotional release, gripping the counter as tears flowed freely down his face. Relief, joy, anger, grief, all the emotions he'd suppressed in the hospital washed over him at once. His phone rang, interrupting the moment. Richard, his attorney. "David, how is she?" "Asleep upstairs," David replied, quickly composing himself. "She's incredible, Richard. After everything she's been through, she's still so resilient." "That's wonderful to hear. I've been in touch with the Rockford police. They've formally charged Rebecca with custodial interference and child endangerment. Given the duration and the evidence of planning, she's looking at significant jail time. And this Marcus Delgado character Lily mentioned? They're investigating. If he knowingly aided her in violating the custody order, he could face accomplice charges. I've already filed emergency motions to reaffirm your custody and specifically prohibit any visitation by Rebecca pending criminal proceedings." David mixed pancake batter with one hand, the phone cradled against his shoulder. "What about Rebecca's request to see Lily? The detective said she's threatening self-harm." Richard's sigh crackled through the line. "Classic manipulation tactic. I'd advise against it, but ultimately it's your call. Whatever you decide, I'll support legally." After hanging up, David shaped the pancakes into butterflies, an approximation at best but recognizable enough, and carried the plate upstairs. He found Lily surrounded by opened presents, examining a leather-bound journal from her 10th birthday. "Butterfly pancakes," he announced. "Not quite as good as the bunnies, but I'm out of practice." Lily's smile, tentative but real, was the most beautiful thing he'd seen in 7 years. They ate cross-legged on the floor amid wrapping paper and ribbons, talking about small, safe things. The book she'd opened, the neighbors who still lived on their street, the stray cat that had adopted David 3 winters ago and now slept at the foot of his bed. "Dad," Lily said finally, setting down her fork. "Mom's going to go to jail, isn't she?" David hesitated, weighing honesty against protection. "Probably, yes. What she did, taking you away, keeping you from me, moving you from place to place, it was against the law. She said she had to protect me from you." Lily's voice was small. "That you were dangerous." The accusation, even second-hand, stung deeply. "Your mother is sick, Lily. She has bipolar disorder, which can sometimes make people believe things that aren't true. I never hurt either of you. I would never have hurt you." "I know," Lily said simply, surprising him. "I remembered things sometimes, even when Mum said they weren't real, like the butterfly room and the pancakes, and how you used to read 3 books every night even when you were really tired." David swallowed the lump in his throat. "You remembered all. That and the song," Lily added. "The goodnight song about the moon and stars. Sometimes I'd sing it to myself when Mum was asleep and I felt scared." The song. David's mother had sung it to him, and he had passed it on to Lily. The thought of his frightened daughter comforting herself with that melody through years of upheaval broke something open inside him. "The detective said Mom wants to see me," Lily said unexpectedly, her gaze direct. "Are you going to let me?" David set down his own fork, startled. "You heard that? I thought you were asleep." "I was pretending. I wanted to know what was happening." There was a wariness in her eyes that no 12-year-old should possess, the look of a child who had learned to gather information for survival. "Do you want to see her?" David asked carefully. Lily looked down at her half-eaten pancake. "I don't know, I'm mad at her for lying, but also, she's still your mom," David finished gently. "And you love her." Lily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "Is that bad, after what she did to you?" "No, sweetheart, it's not bad at all. Love is complicated sometimes. You can be angry with someone and still love them." They decided to rest before making any decisions about Rebecca. Lily, exhausted from her ordeal, fell asleep in her childhood bed, surrounded by the stuffed animals she'd once abandoned. David watched her from the doorway for a long moment before retreating to call Detective Santos. "We'll come tomorrow," he told her. "A supervised visit like you suggested, 10 minutes maximum, and I'll be there the entire time." That night, after checking on Lily for the 10th time, David sat at his kitchen table with a legal pad, making lists. A child psychologist specializing in trauma, a new school enrollment, clothes shopping. Lily had arrived with only the pajamas she was wearing, potential security measures to ensure Rebecca couldn't take her again. His phone buzzed with a text from the detective. "Rebecca's doctors have her stabilized. She's agreed to the supervised visit conditions. 10 a.m. tomorrow." David confirmed the time, then returned to his lists, planning, organizing, attempting to chart a path through the uncertain terrain ahead. The practical tasks kept him anchored when emotions threatened to overwhelm him. He was still at the table, surrounded by notes and half-drunk coffee, when a small sound made him look up. Lily stood in the kitchen doorway in her borrowed t-shirt, one of his hanging to her knees, her hair tousled from sleep, her eyes shadowed. "I had a bad dream," she said, her voice small in the quiet house. "Mom was taking me away again, and I couldn't find you." David opened his arms and Lily came to him, climbing into his lap as if 7 years hadn't passed, as if she were still the 5-year-old who had loved butterfly pajamas and bedtime stories. "I'm right here," he murmured into her hair. "And you're safe now, I promise." As he held his daughter in the quiet kitchen, the first hints of dawn beginning to lighten the sky outside, David knew that they had a long, difficult road ahead. There would be questions without easy answers, hurts that couldn't be quickly mended, trust that would need to be painstakingly rebuilt. But for the first time in 7 years, they would walk that road together. Part 3. The hospital corridor. Seemed longer than David remembered from the previous day. Lily walked beside him, her hand clasped tightly in his, her steps slowing as they approached the psychiatric ward where Rebecca was being held. "You can change your mind," David reminded her gently. "Anytime, even once we're in there." Just squeeze. My hand if you want to leave. Lily nodded, her face solemn. She had dressed carefully that morning, selecting a sweater and jeans from the emergency shopping they'd done at a nearby Target. Her hair was pulled back with a butterfly clip they'd found in her childhood bedroom drawer. She looked both younger and older than her 12 years, vulnerable yet determined. Detective Santos met them outside the secure unit. Rebecca has been informed of the conditions, she assured them. 10 minutes, fully supervised. Any attempt to manipulate Lily or make promises about the future will end the visit immediately. Inside the small visitor's room, Rebecca sat at a table, a hospital bracelet circling her thin wrist. David barely recognized his ex-wife. The vibrant, spirited woman he'd married was gone, replaced by someone gaunt and hollow-eyed, her once glossy brown hair dull and unkempt. Only her eyes remained the same, the deep blue that Lily had inherited. Those eyes filled with tears as they entered. "Lily," she breathed, half rising before the attendant placed a warning hand on her shoulder. Lily hesitated in the doorway, suddenly uncertain. David squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. "It's okay. I'm right here." Rebecca's gaze flickered to David, a complex emotion crossing her face. Resentment mingled with something that might have been shame. "You can sit down if you want to," David told Lily quietly, "or we can just stand here. Whatever makes you comfortable." After a moment's hesitation, Lily moved forward and took a seat across from her mother. David remained standing behind her, his hands protectively on her shoulders. "Baby, are you okay?" Rebecca asked, her voice cracking. "They're treating you all right?" "I'm fine, Mom," Lily replied, her voice steadier than David had expected. "Dad made butterfly pancakes yesterday." Rebecca flinched slightly at the word dad, but quickly composed herself. That's good. You always loved those." She glanced up at David again, then back to Lily. "I'm so sorry about what happened. At the motel, I never meant to scare you like that. Were you trying to die?" Lily asked bluntly. The directness of the question startled both adults. Rebecca's eyes filled with fresh tears. "No, sweetheart, I was scared. I thought they were going to take you away from me. But they did," Lily pointed out, "because I had to call for help." Rebecca's hands trembled on the table. "I know I made a terrible mistake. Not just at the motel," Lily continued, her voice growing stronger. "You made me Sophie. You said Dad didn't want us anymore. That was a lie." David felt a surge of pride mingled with heartache. His daughter was confronting the deceptions that had shaped her childhood with a clarity he hadn't anticipated. "I thought I was protecting you," Rebecca whispered. "I really believed he would hurt us." "That's not true," Lily said firmly. "I remember Dad. He never hurt anyone." Rebecca seemed to crumple inward, tears flowing freely now. "The doctors here say I was very sick, Lily, that I wasn't thinking clearly, that I might have imagined dangers that weren't real." "Because of the bipolar thing?" Rebecca looked surprised. "You know about that?" "Dad told me. He said it makes people believe things that aren't true sometimes." Rebecca shot David a look, not angry as he might have expected, but almost grateful. "Yes, that's right, and I refused to take medicine that could have helped me think more clearly. That was another mistake." The clinical detachment in her voice worried David. This felt rehearsed, as if Rebecca was saying what she thought they wanted to hear. But Lily seemed to accept her mother's explanation, her rigid posture softening slightly. "Are you taking medicine now?" she asked. Rebecca nodded. "Yes, it helps. I can see things more clearly." She hesitated, then added, "I can see how wrong. I was to take you away from your dad, from your home, to make you live like we were always running." David remained silent, watching this exchange with a mixture of wariness and wonder. He hadn't expected even this small acknowledgement of wrongdoing from Rebecca. "I made you a drawing," Lily said suddenly, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. She placed it on the table and pushed it toward her mother. Rebecca unfolded it with trembling fingers. David couldn't see the image from his position, but he watched Rebecca's face crumple as she took it in. "Our butterfly garden," Rebecca whispered, You remembered that? Lily nodded. From the apartment in Winnipeg, you painted butterflies on my wall because I missed my real butterfly room. You said someday we'd have a real garden again. The reminder of her broken promises seemed to hit Rebecca hard. She pressed her hand to her mouth, struggling to maintain composure. Lily, I'm so sorry for everything, for taking you away from your home, for all the lies. I thought I was doing the right thing, but I was wrong. Are you going to jail? Lily asked again with that direct, unflinching honesty. Rebecca looked to the detective before answering. Probably, yes, for quite a while. And then what happens? I don't know, Rebecca admitted. That depends on a lot of things. On your dad, on the judges, on whether I can get better. David felt Lily tense beneath his hands. She was silent for a long moment, then asked the question that clearly weighed most heavily on her mind. Will I ever see you again? Before Rebecca could answer, David stepped in gently. That's something we'll figure out over time, Lily. It depends on what the courts decide, on what's best and safest for you and on what you want too. Your feelings matter in this. Rebecca's gaze met his over Lily's head, a look of genuine surprise crossing her face at his measured response. Perhaps she had expected him to cut her out of Lily's life entirely, a reaction that would have been understandable, given what she'd done. Your dad is right, she said finally. What happens next depends on a lot of things. But Lily, no matter what, I want you to know that I love you. Even when I was making terrible decisions, that never changed. The attendant signaled that their time was nearly up. Lily stood, hesitating briefly before asking, Can I hug her goodbye? The question caught David off guard. He looked to Detective Santos, who nodded her approval. Quickly, please. Rebecca rose from her chair as Lily rounded the table. Their embrace was brief but fierce, both of them crying now. Be good for your dad, Rebecca whispered as they separated. He loves you very much. I was wrong to make you doubt that. This unexpected acknowledgement, perhaps the first truly unselfish thing Rebecca had said during the visit, touched something in David that he had thought long hardened against her. Not forgiveness exactly, but a glimmer of understanding. That beneath the lies and manipulation, somewhere beneath the illness that had distorted her thinking, was a mother who loved her child. As they left the hospital, Lily was quieter than she had been that morning, processing the complex emotions of seeing her mother in such circumstances. Are you okay? David asked as they reached the car. Lily considered the question with the same thoughtfulness she brought to everything. I'm sad, she said finally, but also kind of relieved. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, David assured her. It's a lot to deal with all at once. Mom seems different on the medicine, more like how I remember her from before. From when we were all together. David chose his words carefully. The right treatment can help a lot with bipolar disorder. It doesn't fix everything instantly, but it helps people think more clearly, feel more stable. Could she have taken medicine before, when we were still a family? The question pierced right to the heart of the tragedy that had unfolded 7 years earlier. She could have, yes, I tried to get her to see doctors, to try medication, but she didn't believe she was sick then. She thought everyone else was the problem. Lily absorbed this, her brow furrowed in concentration. So maybe if she had taken medicine back then, she wouldn't have taken me away. We could have still been a family. The wistfulness in her voice broke David's heart. How did he explain to a 12-year-old the complexity of adult relationships, the way love could corrode under the strain of untreated mental illness, the impossibility of knowing what might have been? I don't know, Lilypad, he answered honestly. Maybe things would have been different. But we can't change what happened. We can only go forward from here. As they drove home, Lily asked if they could stop at a bookstore. David, eager to encourage any interest or request from his daughter, readily agreed. Inside, Lily made a beeline for the psychology section, returning with a book titled Understanding Bipolar Disorder, a guide for families. I want to learn about Mom's illness, she explained as David paid for the book, so I can understand better. That night, after dinner, they sat together on the porch swing that had been Rebecca's favorite spot when they were first married. Lily had been reading her new book, occasionally asking David questions he did his best to answer. "Dad," she said during a lull in their conversation, "I've been thinking about something Mom said today about being Sophie." David waited, giving her space to continue at her own pace. "I was Sophie for so long that sometimes it feels weird to be Lily again," she admitted. "Like I'm two different people. Sophie had different friends and different memories than Lily." The implication of this statement, that Lily had developed a separate sense of self to cope with her fractured life, concerned David deeply. It was another item to discuss with the child psychologist Richard had recommended, whom they were scheduled to see the following week. "You're Lily," he said firmly but gently. "You've always been Lily, even when you had to answer to a different name. All those experiences, all those memories, they're all part of you, not separate from you." "But Sophie didn't have a dad," Lily said quietly. "And Lily does. So they can't be the same person, can they?" The simplified logic of a child trying to reconcile years of contradictory information tore at David's heart. "Sophie was a name, sweetie, not who you really were. Think of it like an actress playing a part in a movie. The actress is still herself even when she's pretending to be someone else." Lily considered this, swaying gently on the swing. "So, all the Sophie memories are really Lily memories?" "Exactly," David confirmed. "They're all yours, the good ones and the hard ones too." As darkness fell around them, Lily's head gradually drooped against David's shoulder. He sat there long after she had fallen asleep, listening to her steady breathing, feeling the weight of her trust against him. The road ahead would not be easy. There would be legal battles over Rebecca's criminal charges, custody hearings to formalize what the emergency orders had established, therapy sessions to help Lily process her trauma, and the everyday challenges of rebuilding a relationship after 7 years of absence. But in that moment, with stars appearing one by one in the night sky and his daughter's warmth beside him, David allowed himself to feel something he had almost forgotten: hope. Part 4. 3 months passed in a blur of appointments, adjustments, and small victories. Fall turned to winter, bringing the first snow that Lily had seen in Chicago since she was 5 years old. She stood at the window that December morning, watching fat flakes drift down, her breath fogging the glass. "Do you think my snowsuit still fits?" she asked without turning around. David smiled at the question, so normal for a child, yet another reminder of all they were reclaiming together. "Probably not after 7 years, but we can go shopping this weekend if you want." Lily had adapted to her restored life with remarkable resilience, though not without struggles. Dr. Eleanor Patel, the child psychologist they saw twice weekly, had been invaluable in helping Lily process her conflicting emotions, love for her mother coexisting with anger over the deceptions, joy at being home mingled with survivors' guilt for leaving Rebecca behind. Attachment disruption followed by reunion is complex, Dr. Patel had explained during one of her parent consultations with David. Lily feels caught between two worlds, two versions of herself. Your consistent presence is the anchor she needs. Right now, David had taken a leave of absence from his job as an architectural engineer, using the substantial savings he'd accumulated while living frugally during his years of searching. He wanted to be fully present for Lily during this crucial transition period, available for every school pickup, every therapy appointment, every middle-of-the-night anxiety attack. Lily's enrollment at Oak Ridge Middle School had been carefully managed with the help of Dr. Patel and a sympathetic principal. The staff knew the broad outlines of her situation, enough to understand why a new student might sometimes become withdrawn or anxious, or why her academic skills were uneven, advanced in some areas but behind in others, reflecting the patchwork education she'd received while constantly moving. "You've got a big day today," David reminded her as he started breakfast. "First session with the new art therapist." Lily turned from the window with a small smile. "Ms. Patel says art therapy is just fancy coloring." "Dr. Patel knows you've been holding back in your sessions," David countered gently. "Sometimes it's easier to express feelings through drawing than with words." Lily shrugged, but her interest was evident as she helped set the table. Her love of drawing had been one constant throughout her disrupted childhood. The backpack she'd brought from the motel had been filled mostly with sketchbooks and colored pencils, precious possessions carried from place to place. After breakfast, David checked his phone to find a text from Richard. Judge issued final ruling. Criminal proceedings. Moving forward, call when you can. Rebecca's case had moved through the legal system with surprising speed, accelerated by her decision to plead guilty to all charges. David had mixed feelings about this development. On one hand, it spared Lily the trauma of a trial where she might have been called to testify. On the other, it felt somehow unsatisfying, as if 7 years of deliberate actions could be neatly resolved with a formal admission of guilt. "Ready for school?" he asked, pushing thoughts of Rebecca aside. "For now." Lily nodded, zipping up her new winter coat, purple with butterfly buttons, a small homage to the room she had never forgotten. The drive to school had become their special time, a 15-minute bubble of normalcy, in days often filled with appointments and legal consultations. Today, Lily chatted about a science project on ecosystems, her enthusiasm a sign of growing engagement with school and peers. "Maddie asked if I could come to her birthday party on Saturday," she mentioned as they approached the drop-off line. "It's at the ice skating rink." "Do you want to go?" David asked, careful to keep his tone neutral despite his excitement at this social invitation. Lily bit her lip, an old habit that surfaced when she was uncertain. "I don't know how to skate." "I could teach you. We used to go skating on the pond at Garfield Park when you were little." "We did?" Lily's eyes widened with interest. "I don't remember that." "You were pretty small, 3 or 4. You had tiny pink skates with double blades." David smiled at the memory. "You'd hold onto my hands and we'd go around and around until your cheeks were bright red from the cold." These fragments of shared history had become precious currency between them, filling in the blank spaces of Lily's interrupted childhood. Each remembered detail seemed to strengthen the bond that Rebecca had tried to sever. "I'll think about the party," Lily decided as they reached the front of the line. She gathered her backpack, then surprised David with a quick, fierce hug before hopping out of the car. He watched her walk into the school, noting how different she looked now compared to the traumatized child who had called him 3 months. Her shoulders were straighter, her steps more confident. There was still healing to be done, but each day brought progress. After dropping Lily at school, David called Richard from the parking lot. The judge issued a 15-year sentence. His attorney reported without preamble, with potential parole after 7, contingent on continued psychiatric treatment and good behavior. 7 years, David repeated, the symmetry not lost on him, the same amount of time she had stolen from them. "There's more," Richard continued. "The investigation into Marcus Delgado has yielded results. They've connected him to several cases of identity fraud, including the documentation he provided for Rebecca. He's facing significant federal charges." "Has Lily's name come up in connection with Delgado?" David asked, concerned about media attention affecting his daughter. "No, they're keeping her identity protected due to her age. The press has the basics. A mother who abducted her child during a custody dispute, but specific details are being withheld." After ending the call, David sat in his car for several minutes, processing the news. 15 years. Rebecca would be in her 50s when she emerged from prison. Lily would be an adult, possibly in college or starting a career. The family they had once been would be irretrievably in the past. The finality of the sentencing brought complicated emotions. Not satisfaction exactly, but perhaps a sense of closure. The legal system had acknowledged the severity of Rebecca's actions, the years of deception and instability she had forced upon their daughter. Later that afternoon, the art therapist, a gentle-voiced woman named Sophia Torres, met with David after Lily's session. "She's extraordinarily talented," Ms. Torres began, showing him several drawings Lily had produced. "But more importantly, she's using art to process her experiences in a very sophisticated way." David examined the drawings carefully. Most featured butterflies, some trapped in jars, others breaking free from chrysalises, still others soaring, above landscapes that seemed both familiar and dreamlike. "This one is particularly significant," Ms. Torres said, pointing to a drawing that showed 2 distinct houses. One was dark, with rain clouds overhead and a road leading away from it. The other was bright, with the butterfly room visible through, an upstairs window and two figures in the yard, one tall, one small. She's representing her two worlds, the therapist explained, the unstable one with her mother and the secure one she's rebuilding with you. And the butterflies? Transformation, Ms. Torres smiled. Lily explained that butterflies undergo a complete metamorphosis but emerge as themselves, still the same creature despite the profound change. I think she's working through what you told her about Sophie and Lily being the same person. The insight caught David off guard. The butterfly motif that had followed Lily from infancy, from her nursery wallpaper to her current coat buttons, had become her own symbol for resilience and continuity of self. That evening, after dinner, David received an unexpected call from Detective Santos. Rebecca has requested another supervised visit with Lily before her transfer to the State Women's Correctional Facility next week, the detective informed him. Given the sentencing, this would likely be their last in-person contact for some time. David's instinctive response was refusal. The previous visit had been emotionally draining for Lily, leaving her quiet and withdrawn for days afterward. Why subject her to that again? I'll have to discuss it with Lily and her therapist, he said instead. This needs to be her decision, not mine or Rebecca's. Lily, she breathed, breaking into a tentative smile as she took her seat across the table. You look so beautiful. Lily managed a small smile in return. Hi, Mom. Rebecca's gaze shifted to David, a complexity of emotions crossing her face. Thank you for bringing her. I know you didn't have to. David nodded slightly but said nothing, maintaining his role as silent supporter. This was Lily's visit. He was here solely to provide security and comfort. I wanted to see you before I go to the bigger prison, Lily explained, her voice steadier than David had expected. Dr. Patel says it's important to have closure. A flash of pain crossed Rebecca's face at this clinical framing, but she quickly composed herself. Your therapist sounds very wise. How are you doing, sweetheart? Really doing? Lily considered the question with characteristic thoughtfulness. I'm okay. I'm going to a good school now. I have some friends. Dad's teaching. Me to ice skate again. Again? Rebecca looked puzzled, then understanding dawned. Oh, from when you were little. You probably don't remember that. Dad told me about it. About the pink skates with double blades. Lily paused, then added, he tells me a lot of stories about when I was little, about things we all did together before. Rebecca's eyes filled, with tears that she quickly blinked away. That's good. I'm glad you're learning about those times. Were you very sick even then? Lily asked directly. The question seemed to catch Rebecca off guard. Yes, I was beginning to be, though I didn't know it at the time. She glanced at David as if seeking confirmation of this version of events. The doctors here say I probably had bipolar disorder for years before it became severe. Looking back, I can see patterns. The intense highs, the terrible lows, the paranoia that kept getting worse. She spoke carefully, using terminology that suggested therapy or psychiatric education. I've been reading about it, Lily offered, gesturing to her backpack, where her now familiar guidebook resided. It's about how the medicine helps control the symptoms but doesn't cure it completely. Rebecca looked genuinely surprised at this. You've been studying my illness? I wanted to understand, Lily said simply. Dad said it would help me make sense of what happened. David felt Rebecca's gaze on him again, a mixture of gratitude and regret evident in her expression. It would have been easier, they both knew, for him to paint her as a villain without nuance, to encourage Lily's anger without acknowledging the complexity of mental illness. His choice to foster understanding instead was an unexpected gift. I wanted to show you something, Lily said, reaching into her backpack. She removed a carefully protected drawing and slid it across the table. David hadn't seen this artwork before. It showed a butterfly garden, but unlike the previous one, this scene included 3 figures, a child and 2 adults, one male and one female, standing slightly apart, but all gazing at the same luminous blue butterfly above. Rebecca studied the drawing, her hands trembling slightly. Is this us? Lily nodded. Not how we were, But maybe, I don't know. Ms. Torres says art can show possibilities sometimes, not just memories. The profound meaning of this drawing, that Lily could imagine a future where her parents, though separated, could peacefully coexist in her life, moved David deeply. He placed a supportive hand on his daughter's shoulder, feeling her lean slightly into his touch. "It's beautiful, Lily," Rebecca said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you. I'm going to ask if I can hang it in my cell, my room, at the new facility." The conversation shifted to safer topics. Lily's school projects, the stray cat that had officially become their pet, books she was reading. Throughout, David observed a change in Rebecca's interaction with their daughter. The desperate possessiveness of previous encounters had been replaced by a more thoughtful attention. She asked questions and actually listened to the answers, engaged with Lily's interests without trying to dominate the conversation. As their allotted time neared its end, Rebecca straightened in her chair, visibly gathering courage. "Lily, there's something important I want to tell you. Something I've been working on with my doctors." Lily tensed slightly, and David gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze of reassurance. "I know I hurt you terribly by taking you away from your father, from your home," Rebecca began. "For years, I told myself I was protecting you, that I was the only one who could keep you safe. But that wasn't true. It was my illness talking and my own selfishness." She took a deep breath before continuing. "The hardest thing I've had to accept is that what I believed was love was actually control. Real love, the kind your dad has shown, means wanting what's best for you even when it's painful for me." David felt a jolt of surprise at hearing his parenting acknowledged this way, especially from the woman who had once accused him of being a danger to their child. "I'm going to be in prison for a long time, Lily," Rebecca continued gently. "Years and years I won't be part of your daily life as you grow up, and that breaks my heart. But I also know now that it's the consequence of my actions." Lily was listening intently, her expression serious beyond her years. "But I want you to know that I'm committed to getting better, to staying on my medication, to doing all the therapy they offer here. Not because it will change my sentence, but because I want to be someone you can be proud to know someday." Rebecca's voice broke slightly. "Someone worthy of this beautiful drawing." The guard signaled that they had 5 minutes remaining. Lily glanced at David, a silent question in her eyes. He nodded, understanding what she wanted to ask. "When you get out," Lily began hesitantly, "will you try to take me again?" The directness of the question visibly pained Rebecca, but she answered without hesitation. "No, Lily, never again. You'll be an adult by then, first of all, but even if you weren't, no, I've caused enough damage. All I want is the chance to know you in whatever way you're comfortable with when that time comes." A small release of tension went through Lily's shoulders at this promise. "I might want to write you letters sometimes. Dad said that would be okay if I wanted to." Rebecca's gaze met David's, naked gratitude in her eyes. "I would like that very much," she told Lily, "and I'll write back. Though they tell me my letters will be reviewed by your therapist first to make sure they're appropriate. That's a good protection." "Like training wheels," Lily suggested, showing surprising insight, "until we learn how to do this right." As the guard approached to end the visit, Rebecca stood, visibly struggling with the limitations of their goodbye. No contact visits were permitted in this section of the facility. "I love you, Lily," she said, her voice steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I'm so sorry for all the harm I caused, and I'm so grateful your father never stopped looking for you." Lily stood as well, clutching the edge of the table. "I love you too, Mom," she replied softly. "I hope you get better in there." The walk back to the car was silent, David matching his pace to Lily's slower steps. Once inside, he turned to her with concern. "You okay?" Lily stared out the window at the high fences surrounding the facility. "She seems different on the medicine. More like, I don't know, more real." "The right treatment can make a tremendous difference," David agreed, starting the engine but making no move to drive away, giving Lily the time she needed. "Dad?" Lily's voice was thoughtful. "Do you think Mom would have taken me if she had been on medicine back then?" "It was the same," question she had asked months earlier, but now David sensed she might be ready for a more nuanced answer. I think medication would have helped her think more clearly, recognize what was real and what wasn't, he said carefully. But bipolar disorder doesn't create problems out of nothing. It amplifies tendencies that are already there. Your mum always struggled with seeing other perspectives, with accepting when she was wrong. The illness made that much worse, but it didn't create it. Lily absorbed this, her expression contemplative. Like how my friend Jordan has ADHD, but medicine doesn't change his personality. He's still super creative and talkative. It just helps him focus better. That's a good comparison, David agreed, impressed by her understanding. Lily turned from the window to face him directly. I'm glad you kept looking for me all those years, even when everyone probably told you to stop. They did, David admitted, remembering the well-intentioned advice from friends, family, even his therapist to move forward and accept reality after years of fruitless searching. But I couldn't give up on you, Lilypad. You're my heart. The drive home was quiet, each of them processing the emotional weight of the visit. As they approached their neighborhood, Lily broke the silence. Dad? I was thinking about the butterfly room. What about it? David asked, glancing at her curiously. I think I'm ready for a change, she said, her voice gaining confidence as she continued. Not completely different. I still like butterflies, but maybe more grown up. I'm almost 13 now. The request, so normal, so age-appropriate, filled David with a quiet joy. It represented Lily's growing security, her ability to consider the future rather than remain fixed on reclaiming the past. Absolutely, he agreed. We could look at paint colors this weekend, maybe some new bedding, whatever you want. As they pulled into their driveway, the house that had once felt like a shrine to absence now welcomed them with warm, lit windows. Mrs. Abernathy, their elderly neighbor who had been part of Lily's extended safety network since her return, waved from her porch. The stray cat, now officially named Butterscotch, watched their arrival from the living room windowsill. That night after dinner, they sat at the kitchen table with paint chips and magazines, planning Lily's room renovation. She leaned toward teals and purples, still drawn to patterns with butterflies, but now interested in more abstract designs, rather than the childish illustrations of her childhood room. Maybe we could save one wall, she suggested, pointing to the corner where her bed stood. Keep a little bit of the butterfly wallpaper, just as a reminder, and the rest can be new. The symbolism wasn't lost on David, preserving a piece of her past while embracing her present and future. I think that's a perfect solution, he agreed. Later, as he tucked her in, a ritual she still welcomed despite edging toward adolescence, Lily asked a question that caught him off guard. Dad, do you ever wish you could just hate Mom completely? Wouldn't it be easier? David considered this carefully. Easier in some ways, maybe. Anger is simpler than what I actually feel. Which is what? Lily pressed, genuinely curious. Sadness, mostly, he admitted. Sadness for all of us. For you, for her, for myself. For the family we might have been if things had been different. And yes, anger too, especially when I think about what you went through. But also, he paused, searching for the right words. Also hope, he finished. Hope that you'll heal from this experience. Hope that your mom will find peace with her illness. Hope that someday we'll all find the right way to be a family. Not the way we planned, but in a new way that works for all of us. Lily nodded, seeming satisfied with this complex answer. That's what my drawing was about, she said sleepily. The three of us in the garden, not together, but all there, watching the same butterfly. As he turned out her light, leaving only the star projector's gentle glow, David was struck by his daughter's resilience and wisdom. Despite everything she had endured, the disruptions, the lies, the unstable existence, she had emerged with an extraordinary capacity for empathy and understanding. 7 years. Rebecca had stolen 7 years from their life together, but as David stood in the doorway, watching his daughter's peaceful form beneath the covers, he realized something profound. She hadn't broken them. Damaged, yes. Tested, certainly, but not broken. The call that had come that night, 3 months, Hers, a terrified child reaching out to the father she barely remembered, had been the first step in a journey of healing that would continue for years to come. There would be setbacks, difficult conversations, complex emotions to navigate, but they would face them together with the support of therapists, friends, and the daily rituals of ordinary life that gradually transformed a house back into a home. As David descended the stairs, he noticed Lily's drawing of the butterfly garden still on the kitchen counter. He studied it more carefully now, the three figures standing apart, yet connected by their shared attention to the beautiful creature soaring above them. An impossible scene in many ways, yet also a vision of hope, drawn by a child wise enough to imagine reconciliation without denying reality. David placed the drawing carefully on the refrigerator, securing it with butterfly magnets Lily had chosen on one of their weekend shopping trips. Whatever the future held, whatever complex relationship evolved between Lily and her mother in the years to come, this moment of peace, this quiet triumph of family love over trauma and separation, would sustain them through the journey ahead. The phone call that had awakened him 3 months ago had changed everything. But the real miracle, David reflected as he moved through the quiet house that was now truly a home again, wasn't just that Lily had found her way back to him. It was that, after everything she had endured, his daughter had somehow preserved her. Capacity for love, forgiveness, and hope, the very qualities that would guide her healing in the years to come.
I hope you enjoyed this story as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If it touched your heart, please leave a like to show your support. It means a lot to me and helps bring our story to more people who might need to hear it today.